So all the people who miss and are like, I missed it.
We want to hear Bjorn and George talk.
So they can still participate just after the fact. Okay.
Do I have to wear Puma now?
What's that?
Do I have to? Am I contractually obligated to wear Puma gear?
You know, I have made a big conversion to Puma, but I don't think that you're contractually obligated to, unless you. Well, I don't know. Are you a 24/7 employee now?
I'm a 24/7 employee now.
And I don't know. Maybe I'd ask Mark.
I just texted you a picture of me wearing Adidas.
Yeah, I have a lot of Adidas stuff still. You know,
that was me probably 30 years ago. Nice turtleneck with Adidas on the side.
Sweet.
Yeah, it really was.
Adidas was too fancy for me. I grew up in a small town, so we didn't have Adidas. All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. If people join, then they join, which is great. But welcome to Rules of the Game. And it's a little bit, I shouldn't have actually called it Rules of the Game because they're not rules. You know what they are? They're laws. It's laws of the game. But no one is really going to care, I don't think, unless some of the Brits might. But beyond that, I don't think anyone else will. So there's going to be a few things that we cover. One is just understanding what the landscape is and that it is uneven. There's we'll leave it at that. We're also going to talk about what a fair charge is, which is one of the most misunderstood rules and is the one that you probably will hear the most about in terms of things you hear from the sideline that are wrong.
Right.
We're going to talk about what a handball is, because guess what? Not everything's a handball just because it touches your hand. We'll talk about what offside is. And this is another one of those like lexicon things that really gets people, because the Brits really get offended when we say offsides, which is just what we call it, but it's not offsides, it's offside, whatever. That's their thing. And then as a bonus, we'll talk about the playing on the ground. If you've ever heard that, George and I certainly have. We'll talk about what that is. So who are we and why are we talking to you? I am Bjorn. I am head coach for the 2013 boys white team for the next month until it dissolves and becomes something else with the age group change. I'm also co-president of the club, but I'm also a ref. I've been reffing for I think 4 years now. I've done over 100 games. And I may very well do some of your kids' games because I like actually doing the rec games. I think they're fun. They don't pay as much, which is a thing, but they are fun. And then George, you can introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, my name is George Derrick. I'm head coach of the 2017 white boys team. I'm also an assistant parent coach for the 2015 boys blue team and the 2011 boys red team. On top of all that, I'm the assigner for Alameda Soccer Club, so I'm the director of referees, a mentor for referees through Jack London Youth Soccer Club, and I'm also a certified U.S. soccer referee mentor. So I actually train new referees on how to do the mechanics and understand the rules. So you may see me around Alameda Point or Main Street or Hornet. I may be walking around. Say hi if you do. If you have any questions, please ask me. So that's about it.
The point is we're actually qualified to have this conversation with you.
Right.
So,
right.
So you have that going for you. Yeah. So this first point, what do we mean by the rules? The landscape is uneven. It's important to know, as the president of yeah, sure. You're in 5v5 right now, so the rules are going to change a lot next year. But yeah, so that's answering a question in chat. Rules are interpreted differently by each ref. There is a definite set of rules, but it's important to know that just because a rule is clear to one ref, it doesn't mean that it's going to be clear to the next. Also understand that foul calling tolerances vary greatly. So I have some refs at games that will call things super tight and others that will really let things go. And it doesn't mean that it is wrong one way or another. It's about game management. So that's a decision that each ref is going to make, and it's going to depend on the level that you're playing at. So, you know, a 5v5 game should be a little loose. A highly competitive, you know, U15 game, you have to call things a bit tighter because there's more intent behind the fouls at that point. And things can go, you know, the littles, you know, they bounce off each other and they get back up, and they're fine usually. But the older you get, the greater the consequences are for really physical play. Some of the enforcement of specific rules will also vary greatly. No one is really there to see you call foul throws in a 7v7 game, in a U9 game. And no one's really that excited if you are stopping every throw because it's a foul throw. And in, you know, U9 rec soccer, sometimes in some games, every throw is a foul throw. But if I call that, no one's having any fun.
Yeah.
So you're as a ref, you're trying to balance having fun, letting them play, and also playing within the rules. The higher you go, the more a mistake like a foul throw is just going to get called automatically. But the lower level you're at, you know, some refs will call the foul throws, some won't. There's some games where I saw a foul throw every throw, but it was not the level that it needed to be called because we're trying to have the kids play. So just understand that those things are going to be different game to game and level by level. Also, you know, people make mistakes. When I do my check-in for the games, I ask the kids, are you going to make a mistake today? And some will say no. And I'm like, well, you better, because soccer is about trying things. So if you're trying things, you're going to make mistakes. That's normal. But guess what? I might make mistakes too. And we're going to do the same thing. If I make a mistake or you make a mistake, and can you guess what that is? And usually someone will say, keep playing. I'm like, that's it. We're going to keep playing. Okay. So whether I make a mistake or whether the player makes a mistake, we want to play to the whistle. Everything should be playing to the whistle. So those are important points. And so where do the laws of the game come from? Well, there's an organization that actually sets the rules. It's the International Football Association board, and they have a website, the ifab.com. Most of the rules are the same around the world, except for like high school is weird. High school has really weird rules for some
culture. Yeah,
they just do their own thing. They have a definitive clock, and like if the ball is in the air when the clock hits 0 and it's not in the back of the net, it doesn't count as a goal. It's like weird. Mostly though, the rules are the same.
Yeah.
So if you're talking to a referee and you're talking about a certain rule, referees will refer to specific laws. So most of the things that are fouls are going to be in Law 12, fouls and misconduct, or there's Law 11, which is only deals with offside. And they're going to be, referees are trained to think about fouls in terms of with very specific language. So I don't know if any of you have ever heard of something called DOGSO, which is denial of obvious goal scoring opportunity. Well, there are 4 criteria for DOGSO. It isn't just like, oh, they would have scored a goal. You have to go through the considerations, and it has to be all 4. And that is, you know, distance from goal, likelihood of control, number of defenders, and what's the last one, George, for DOGSO?
A denial of obvious goal scoring opportunity.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it stands for that, but it's a distance from goal, likelihood of control, number of defenders. What's the 4th one?
For defenders,
I know I'm like calling you out on that. There's 4, and
it
has to be all 4. It has to be all 4.
Direction. I think it's direction of the play.
Direction.
Yeah.
Admits. We're admitting one more person here. So it has to be all 4. It isn't just, well, they would have scored the goal. You have to go through all the considerations. So when you're talking about a foul, it's like Was it a lunging tackle? Did they leave their feet? What was the rate of speed? Where was the foul committed? All of those things determine whether something is just a foul, or whether it's a yellow card, or whether it's a red card. So referees think about these laws in specific ways. So and that tries to remove some of the subjectivity, but it isn't an objective.
It's distance to goal, distance to ball, the amount of defenders, and closeness to the goal. So it's distance to ball if you can control it. So.
Yeah. All right. So, and this is an interesting thing about being objective, because baseball players now get to challenge calls, and pitchers who are right in the middle of the action, they should know whether they're going to be successful or not. They lose more challenges than they win. So even when you can go back and you can look at the video, they are wrong most of the time. Your bias is definitely influencing the way you're looking at a game. We're trying to be unbiased. And I'll have Alameda parents yelling at me about a foul. I'm co-president of the club. I'm not out there trying to ruin Alameda's time, right? I'm not trying to throw the game. I'm trying to call a balanced, good game for Alameda or for the other team. That doesn't come into consideration. Most of the yellow cards I've issued have been actually to Alameda players. So,
Tracks.
Just realize that your bias is real. It comes with you to the game. And so when you're gonna shout out foul, maybe it wasn't. So keep that in mind.
Can I just do a footnote real quick?
You bet.
One of the things that bothered me a lot when someone yells out foul, I can kind of deal with that. It's frustrating. But when I hear spectators yell body him or body her, it's like, I know what you're saying, but it sounds like you're saying attack them. I would suggest think of another thing to say. I've stopped games before. I've seen refs stop games before because of that. Simmer down. If you're so upset as a parent you think fouls aren't being called, take a walk somewhere and come back 5 minutes, cool down, because you're only going to make yourself look bad. And I'm speaking from experience, because as a coach, I think it's a little ironic that I'm in charge of the referees now, because I've gotten quite a few cautions as a coach and probably dozens as a player. So it's just take a break.
I've only had one yellow card, so
I think I've had 50 at least. So I was not a clean player, but please don't yell body him or her. It's just the spirit of the game, I think, is violated something when you do that. But anyways, go on, Jordan.
So one of the things that you'll hear a lot as a referee is a complaint about contact. So from a referee standpoint, you have to understand that not all contact is a foul. There's lots and lots and lots of contact that isn't a foul. But even if we're talking about some contact that might be a foul, if we deem it inconsequential or minor, we might not call it, because it goes back to, whether you're going to call a throw-in mistake every time you see it. If you are calling foul after foul after foul after foul, no one's having a good time. No soccer's being played. So the referee is trying to manage the game. And so if there are minor fouls or minor contact, that is often not going to get called, because we're trying to play a game of soccer, and every contact that is inconsequential, doesn't affect the play, wasn't intentional, wasn't trying to hurt someone, doesn't rise to the level of something where you need to caution someone, it probably isn't going to get called. So there is a balance that every referee is trying to strike as they're managing a game. I will say also that for rec games, it's important to know who your referees likely are. So there is a pay scale in refereeing. No one's out there for free. I get paid. I make dozens of dollars a year refereeing soccer games. And the competitive games pay more. It's a higher level. You need to run more, et cetera, et cetera. The larger the format, the more money a referee gets paid. So you get paid more for a competitive 11v11 game as a center referee it's $100 or something like that.
It's 100, yeah.
Yeah. So you know, a 7v7 rec game where there's only one ref is about 30, I think. So there is a wide range in pay. There's also a wide range of experience. If you're a new referee, you can't just take a 11v11 competitive game. You have to qualify for it. So that's one of the things that George does, is he will qualify people, go and watch them, give critiques and feedback so that they can improve in their refereeing to the point where they can take those higher level games that pay more. So you are often going to have the least experienced referees who may struggle with things like striking a balance between letting them play and providing a safe playing environment. So those referees, and if you see a green badge, that means they are a youth referee. Yeah, and so they are learning to ref just like your players are learning to play. And so it's important that you give them the space to learn. Every year we lose youth referees because someone is yelling at them. Some parent or some coach is yelling at them. It shouldn't happen. Yeah.
California gains 11,000 refs every year, new refs, and we lose 6,000. We are constantly on a losing battle because of the recidivism rate is so high because of people that will scream at children. They're children, and it's. I mean.
Yeah. So understand that this particular thing about contact being called, you get more confident in doing that as you grow as a referee, and so some of those younger referees may struggle with this particular aspect of controlling a game. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about what a fair charge is. And this is contact that is allowed in soccer. This is contact that's allowed even if you have a little tiny kid who's going up against a really big kid. If they go shoulder to shoulder, the little kid is usually going to end up on the ground. That is not a foul by the big kid. And that's important to know. There will often be murmurs and calls from the sideline anytime anyone hits the ground that there was a foul. A fair charge, if you end up on the ground as a result of a fair charge, it's not a foul. And that is their legal shoulder-to-shoulder challenge when you're both playing for the ball. That is allowed. If you lead with an elbow, that you can't do that. If you push someone with two hands, you can't do that. You can't be reckless or dangerous.
You can't come from behind.
You can't come from behind, which is, I guess there's another slide coming up that talks about that.
Sorry.
But if someone's on the ball, you can come up to them and with your arm at your side, move them off the ball, and that is not a foul. So it doesn't, when you see a player who does that, somebody's like, that player's dirty. If they are doing this right, they're not a dirty player. A coach who's encouraging their players to be physical, hopefully we're talking about in this way, they're not a dirty coach. What is and isn't is a subjective call, and it is something that you get experience in and you get better at. So if you are a youth referee, you've done 3 games, and 2 of those as ARs where you didn't actually have to make any calls, this might be a hard thing for that referee to be very strong on. But understand, not everything is a foul, even if someone ends up on the ground.
Yeah.
So what isn't a fair charge? You can't push someone from behind. There's no pushing there. Anytime you get pushed from behind, that's a foul. You can't lead with an elbow. You can't come in and then throw someone off either. That's excessive force and would be a foul. So just because someone is on the ball doesn't mean that you can run at a high rate of speed and just truck them, just absolutely destroy them. You can't do that because that is reckless or using excessive force. So what is reckless or excessive force? That is a subjective call that the referee has to make. But that is in the rules, and the referee is always going to be trying to figure out, was that reckless, was that excessive force, was it careless, or was that a fair charge? But that's what the referee is trying to figure out every game, every single one of those coming togethers of players. But you definitely have some parents who will decry any contact, and it is a contact sport. So just know that referees are not going to suddenly call every time a player touches another player as a foul. It often isn't. It most of the time isn't. And so that's what the referee is trying to. That's the line that the referee is trying to walk. Just so you know. All right. So that was about charging. And so now we're going to talk about what's that?
This is a big one.
We're going to talk about what a handball is. Oftentimes, anytime the ball hits any hand, one at the 77 level, oftentimes the kids will just stop playing because they assume it's a handball. Mm-hmm. And parents will say, handball! A lot of the time, when the ball hits an arm or a hand, it is not a handball. So, and this is in Law 12. This is in that same Law 12 that deals with fouls. If you're deliberately playing the ball with an arm or hand, and the hand, the arm is what we're talking about, and it's shoulder and below. So it's if the ball hits you on the point of the shoulder, that is not a handball. If it's deliberately played, if your arm is in a position that makes you unnaturally large, unnaturally bigger is what they say. I guess large isn't part of it, but unnaturally bigger, or even if it's accidental, if it comes off your arm and you score off that, that is considered a handball, and even if it's accidental and that gets walked back. But if your arm is in a natural position, it's not a handball. And this is something that a lot of people don't get, if it's deflected off another body part. So I don't know if anyone saw Tim Ream versus Belgium, U.S. men's national team center back. He got a handball in the box, and it was a penalty. And what people were waiting to see is if it went off his thigh before it hit his hand, because if it went off his thigh before it hit his hand, it wouldn't have been a handball.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in soccer years, Tim Ream is 79 years old in soccer years, and he couldn't move his body fast enough to actually hit it with his thigh, and so it hit his arm, and it was a handball. But if it had hit off his thigh and then hit his hand, it wouldn't have been a handball. It wouldn't have been a PK. So if you kick the ball and your arm's up here, you kick that ball and it hits your arm, that is actually not a handball.
Yeah.
And now we have a rash of people who are missing most of this, but that's okay, because
I would say when I train young referees, you may see this in games. It depends on the referee. If I've had contact with them, if the ball is just, it's like a line drive towards a player and they have to protect a sensitive part of their body, I usually will just say play on. If they like put their hands up to protect themselves, unless it's in the box and it's very deliberate, but if they're protecting themselves, I either do play on or I do a drop ball or something for the other team. But I don't want kids getting hurt, because one of the main focus for referees is safety. So I don't want it to be an unnatural advantage. It's just my own personal opinion. That's how other mentors have trained me. VR may disagree. But,
yeah, and that goes back to it's uneven, because George is going to try to manage the game in that way, and whereas I might give a handball for that.
If it's in the penalty box and it's tied in a championship game, I might. But if it's in the middle of the field and the kid does not want to get kicked between the legs, or a girl, sensitive parts of the body, I don't tend to call it a handball.
Yeah.
Subjective in a way.
But this is one of those things where you'll hear on the sideline, handball, and it's like, no, not a handball. Keep playing. The best thing to tell your players is to play to the whistle. If the whistle doesn't blow, then you keep playing. And this is also a thing where younger referees sometimes are a little light on the whistle. I guarantee you, George and I are a lot stronger. You're going to know when we blow the whistle. Sometimes a youth referee, it's a little like, it's kind of a suggestion or a hint of a whistle. But the player should play to the whistle. And there's going to be lots of times where I do not call a handball, even though it's hit a hand, because the body was in a natural position, or it went off another body part before it hit the hand. So, that's important. And now you can stop saying handball when you're out there on the sidelines. So thank you for that. So this is in the IFAB rules about where the handball starts. So that's a handy graphic, and cool hair also from this kid. So let's talk about offside, which is one of the other things that you hear people get wrong a lot. The player needs to be offside. The player needs to be behind the second to last defender and in the defensive half. And the only caveat there is build out line. They need to be behind the second to last defender when the ball is played. It isn't about where you receive it. Some people are like, oh, you can never get a offside call in your own half. Not true. If you are in an offside position in the opponent's half,
yep,
and the ball is kicked and you run onto your side to receive the ball, you started the play when the ball was kicked. You were in an offside position.
That is offside.
So you can be offside there. And you have to be involved in the play. Lots of times I will hear parents yelling that there's offside. Well, they'll say offsides because no one actually says offside. They'll say offsides. And what they're talking about is a player who's in an offside position, but they're not involved in the play. They don't become offside until they're involved in the play. So you can hang out in front of the goalkeeper all game if you want to, as long as the ball doesn't come to you or you're not impeding the goalkeeper. You're never offside.
Yep.
All right. So that's that. And there are certain scenarios where you can't be offside. The law says there is no offside in this situation, which includes throw-ins. And this is an area where you see a lot of parents be like, oh, he's offside, or don't be offside, Johnny or Jane or whoever it is your kid is. You can't be offside on a throw-in. You also can't be offside from a goal kick. In 7v7, very unlikely for that to be something that matters. And you can't be offside on a corner kick. You can be offside on the pass after the corner kick, but and that often happens actually. Yeah. But you can't be offside from the goal kick or from the corner kick itself, or from a goal kick. So there are those scenarios where you can't be offside. Now, what about in 7v7? So in 7v7, you have a build out line. The build out line sets the offside line. So instead of it being midfield, in 7v7, it's the build out line. So there's another, quarter of the field about where a player can be in that space and not be offside. So that's important to know, because a lot of parents, you come into 7v7, you've maybe watched the Premier League, and there's no build out line in the Premier League. And so they look like they're offside, but there's that build out line. Yep. So that's just a thing to know about. There's some other quirky things. You can never be offside if you are even or behind the ball. So regardless of where the second to last defender is, and we say second to last defender, we're talking, usually it's the goalkeeper. We're not talking about the goalkeeper as is usually the last defender. So we're talking about the defender in front of the goalkeeper. So even if you are behind the second to last defender, if the ball is further advanced and a pass comes to you, you can't be offside if you're even or behind the ball when the ball's played. A deliberate back pass is also something that can't be offside. So it has to be a deliberate back pass, though. It can't be just like it bounces off of a player and goes. It has to be a deliberate back pass. So, you don't know there's a defender behind you. You turn around to give the ball to the goalkeeper and there is a defender, or there is a defender there. that can't be offside.
It makes it very challenging to be accurate.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, like these 77s, you just have one center ref.
Yeah.
And even with ARs, it's challenging to be right all the time.
Yeah, and you're not right all the time. And even as a coach who refs, I have been wrong about goals that I thought were offside, and I go back and I look at the video and I'm like, I was wrong. That was onside. Because you're looking at where the ball is received almost always, which is not what determines offside. It's where the player was when the ball was played. And it's hard to get right. It's almost impossible to get right when you don't have the angle. So, sitting wherever you are on the field, unless you are even with that player, you're not going to have a really good idea of whether they were offside or not. Even things that looked really obvious. I can think of a goal I was positive was offside, and I looked at the video and I was absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
So that just come in here for the end here. So that is definitely something that I want you to internalize. One is if you're playing 7v7, there's usually only one ref. There are some times where now some 7v7 games have ARs. That's very rare. It's usually to give a youth referee another opportunity to get something at a little lower stakes. But it's hard as a center referee to get that right all the time, because you can't be even with the player, because you'd be in the wrong position if you were. We don't get VAR. There's no truck outside AP that is drawing lines for us to go review. So, you got to give the referee a little bit of grace, but also understand that it is very hard on the sideline to know whether someone's offside or not. So just know that. All right. So this is the last official question. You often hear, no playing on the ground, ref. Is that a rule? And I'm guessing that you can tell where I'm going with this, and there is no rule about not playing on the ground. A slide tackle, you can make a slide tackle. That is on the ground, and you're playing the ball. The thing you can't do is play in a dangerous manner. That's the law, and that is in 12.2. Playing in a dangerous manner is an indirect free kick. So if the ball's on the ground and a player's on top of the ball and preventing people from playing it, that's playing in a dangerous manner. That's an indirect free kick.
Yeah.
So it's not that if you slip and fall and you're on the ground and the ball's right there and there's no one around you, you can play the ball on the ground. There's no rule that says you can't do that. Mm-hmm. So and it seems like no playing on the ground is something that has been passed down from rec parent to rec parent as a rule. It's not. It's there is no law. There's nothing about not playing on the ground. And so now you've learned some things, I hope. All right. So that is the last of the very pretty slides. Thank you, AI, for doing that. And George, did you have other points that you wanted to make before?
Just a few, but I want to answer your questions too. I just want to make a few points just because generally. As the assigner of the referees, referees making the right call isn't my priority at this point. When you're new, you're not going to make the right call all the time.
Yeah.
Like I say to the young referees, new referees, even if they're adults, is get the easy stuff right. So what I look for, especially when I'm evaluating a referee, is the referee professionally in their attire, the proper uniform, proper socks. Are they there on time? Do they treat everyone respectfully? That's the things I'm looking for, and we'll get to them calling the game. And it's a very incremental step to get a young 14-year-old being a assistant referee, a linesman, what we used to call him, to a center referee in comp. It takes years, and it's very incremental. We have a very difficult system for them to move up, because the higher you move up, the greater the stakes are with the games. I would also say even if it's for your own education, do not approach the referee after the game to ask questions about a call, especially if they're younger. They're going to feel it's kind of like an attack. Even if you mean well, contact me or Bjorn, contact one of the assigners, contact anyone not at the field. They may be rushing up to another game too. So I would say don't. We've had a lot of bad, just this season, we've had a lot of bad interactions with some referees, some parents, even if they meant well. And I would say this, when I am a center referee, I don't like being yelled at, but I do make one exception. But check this out with the referee first. The only time I forgive people for yelling at me is if a player's down, and I'm not looking at it. So if a player's down, just say, "Oh, player down, ref." Don't scream. Don't say anything beyond that. But that's literally the only time it's okay, I think, to yell at a ref. What would you agree, Bjorn? Is there anything else?
Yeah, and I think as a parent, there is a desire, if your player's down on the ground, to go out and see how they are. Never do that.
You have to wait for the referee to ask you on the field.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example of a scenario that it happened. It was a real scenario. Players down on the ground. Now, I know the player's going to be fine. The ball hit him in the face or something like that, and no one's ever really ready to get hit in the face. And oftentimes there's like an emotional reaction that a kid will have when something like that happens. They're not actually injured. They're surprised.
Yeah.
So I've seen this happen a lot, and I'm actually really good at working with these kids to like get them past that. I am talking to a kid who's down on the ground. He's going to be fine. I look up and a parent is standing right over me. I didn't invite that parent on. I don't know if they're mad, if they're concerned, what they're doing there. They shouldn't be there. So no coach and no parent should come onto the field without being invited. And in this case, the parent was not mad. It wasn't even their kid, but they were a nurse. It was like, great. We did not need a nurse for this situation. The kid was fine. And the club actually, I'm really late to this. The club actually was put on probation 2-3 years ago for a parent coming onto the field.
Yep.
We almost got kicked out of NorCal as an organization for a parent coming onto the field. That parent was very angry and was a problem. But that's how strongly that is taken. As a referee, I'm gonna assess if I really think that the kid is injured. I'm gonna beckon the coach on. They're gonna deal with it, and if this is a medical emergency, then we're gonna put a action plan in place right then. Yeah. But a parent coming onto the field invites an element of unknown chaos and potential danger that doesn't need to be there, and so it's hard if that's your kid, but that is how that has to happen from both from a referee and as a coach. Like, I would just make that point.
Yep.
Yeah, there. Let's just talk about throw-ins for a minute, because different refs call throw-ins differently, and the throw-in rule is not actually that complicated. Both feet on the ground, ball starts behind the head, release two hand over the head. A lot of foul throws that some refs call aren't foul throws, because they fit that definition. But as the younger you get, there's a lot of jumping. Right, there's a lot of jumping, there's a lot of one-handed throws. I've even seen a chest pass, and it really depends on the level. If I have two teams that are both doing this, unless it's really egregious, at that first 7v7 year, which is, I think, was that U9? Is that what that is? Depending on the level, and I'm going to actively assess that, I might not call a foul throw all game, because, again, that's not the point of what we're doing there. It's not so that they can make good throws. We want them to run around and play soccer. So, but if I'm doing a 9v9, silver or gold level game, I'm going to call all the throws because they need to get those things right.
Yep.
So there is this, it is discretion. It's about game management. And again, that's one of those things that younger refs are going to be less capable of managing those situations, but that's what they're doing there. That's why they're out there, is to learn and get better at it. But that feedback needs to come from an assigner or a mentor. It shouldn't come from a parent. That's always going to be like super cringe if a parent wants to come out and have a conversation about a call that they feel that the ref missed. In that situation, any situation where a parent is criticizing a referee, the parent doesn't get the yellow card. The yellow card goes to the coach. And that can be until you leave the field. So having a conversation or approaching a referee about something, if the referee feels threatened or intimidated by that, that is a yellow card to the referee. It could be a red, or I'm sorry, to the coach. It could be a red card to the coach, and that would come with some really significant consequences, both for that coach, probably that parent as well, and potentially the club. So, this isn't the World Cup, although, your teams will probably do better than the US will do in the upcoming World Cup, based on recent performances. Really do try to let those things go. And, someone once told me, only losing teams complain about the referees, which does tend to be the true, because if you win, you're like, it was, whatever. But you don't need to do that. If you start yelling at the referee, the kids will learn that it's okay for them to start yelling at the referee, and then you have to take more aggressive actions as a referee to get back control of the game. So I tend to be pretty strict about chirping on the sidelines from parents, from coaches, from players, because if you let it go, then everything can kind of devolve. So in all the games I've done, I've only issued one red card. It was for parent behavior, and it was a caution to the coach. We kicked a parent out. It was harassment of my assistant referee, and I issued a second yellow card to the coach. That was a red card. They didn't have anyone with a coaching pass. That game was over. So, and that came with significant consequences for that club and that coach. So that's the end of our prepared remarks, and a few that weren't even prepared. Right. So if you have questions, please, this is the time. So either in chat or just unmute yourself and raise a hand, or just shout out a question. And if
there's no dumb questions.
That's obviously not true, but
Try to be encouraging.
Yeah, I know. Does anyone have any questions about rules? What level headers and slide tackles allowed? Slide tackles are allowed as long as they are not dangerous. So that is, playing on there is not a, if you're playing 7v7 and you have a player who slide tackles, they get the ball and they don't take the player out. Taking the player out is a foul, even if you touch the ball. If you're playing in a dangerous way, if you're careless or reckless, I would call that a foul. But that is allowed. Headers is a different story, and that is because of concussion concerns, and because of some research showing repeated header use can impact cognitive development, or cognitive health anyway. In rec, as I understand it, there is no heading until you get to 11v11. In the competitive side, it is the second year of 9v9, but that may change with the age group change. I would think it would, and it'll probably be the first year of 11v11. And you can argue that in Italy, Italy hasn't qualified for 3 World Cups, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, good question though, Tony. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
You also ask over video if you want to turn your video
Yeah,
on.
I know. It's just George and I talking right now. So what does it take to become a referee? Because all of you, law curious folks might be interested. There's a online course. You take the online course. It is not super fast. There is a bit to it.
About 4 or 5 hours of.
Yeah, and then there's an on-field practical. So there's like there's an on-field component. The cost is like maybe $70, something like that.
Things like that, yeah.
And the classes aren't all the time, so you have to do them, when it's offered.
We do them twice a year in Alameda.
Yeah, but you can do them other places as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's more than one way to do that. And then you get your badge, which has the year on it. And like we have to get a new one every other year. I think we have to requalify every other year. We don't have to do the on-field stuff, but there's an online version.
I think it's every year.
Is it every year? Yeah, it must be, because you have to finish that and then they send it to you.
Yep.
So, yeah, and there was one year I made like $1,000.
I wrapped about, I think, 80 high school games last year.
Oh yeah.
And my wife threatened divorce
Yeah.
or to murder me. So it's like, I don't want either of those.
Yeah.
High school is definitely different from comp. It is very violent.
The referees are not, you're an independent contractor as a referee, and there is a system we use called SportLinks, and that's where we see the games, and you sign up for the games that you want, and then George as an assigner will say like, yes, you can have that game. So that's how we sign up for the games. We're not Alameda referees. We don't, we're not hired or organized by Alameda Soccer Club. And so the refs you get may be a parent of a player. It may be someone who has no connection to anyone in the club or any player, and they're just doing it for a little extra money, or because they get to run around a bit, or whatever it might be. But the level of familiarity with the club may be co-president to doesn't know anyone at the club and has no relation to anyone. So,
and if you have like a 14-year-old, I think it's 14, right? You have to be 14 or 13.
13 you can become a referee, and I understand that maybe there is some paying under the table that happens if you're 13, but you can't actually officially get paid until you're 14. So 14-year-olds can be paid referees.
Highly encourage you all, 12 of you that are here, and those that actually watch this recording, if you have a 14-year-old at home, have them sign up for a first-time referee course, because it is a great way for a young teenager to make money. And I assign all Alameda Soccer Club games. So any home game where Alameda's home, I assign those referees. And I put a high preference over people from Alameda. And I'm not ashamed about that. I also put a high preference on female referees, because we don't have a lot of them. And I think it's very important to get way more female referees in the business, because I think it's really important to have that kind of diversity. So if you have any 14-year-old daughters or sons and they want to be referees, have them take the course. It's an easy way to make good money, at least for that age group. I mean, when I reffed, I made $4 a game. This was 35 years ago.
Yeah.
So just something to think about. Any other questions? Like I feel bad. Like Tony had a good question, but sure there's more.
We were so comprehensive, George, that we've answered them all. People have actually just like turned their cameras off and left, and we're talking to a bunch of empty cameras, I think is what's happening.
Give me one.
Hey, Bjorn and George.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, I joined late, so you may have covered this. But it's around fair contact. I coach too, and also a parent, right? So we've had a lot of matches where I get shoulder to shoulder. It is a contact sport, but there's kind of been inconsistency with players who will push and pull and do all sorts of stuff, and depending on the referee, sometimes it gets called, sometimes it doesn't. I'm wondering where that line is with arms and that type of stuff.
You would have loved the beginning of this call because we talked about all these things. And the first thing to understand is it is uneven. Each referee is going to call things a little bit different. So there is going to be inconsistency. And a lot of the referees at Rec are younger refs, and so they're learning to ref and they're learning game management and game control. So it's not a feature, but it's also not totally a bug that things are like that because you have a crop of referees who are learning. And also it's about game management. So just because there's a pull, just because there's a little shove, doesn't mean it's going to get called. It needs to impact the play generally, or it needs to be a pattern that the referee is trying to eliminate. But generally, we're going to try to let the kids play. So if it's a problem, then it's going to get called. But also, we as a club sometimes are not encouraging like physical play. And so when your team plays someone who plays physically, like they're just completely unprepared for it. Yeah. So, it can feel like a lot if you haven't played a team that is physical. But if the kids get some experience with it and know how to handle it and don't take it as an assault and don't take it personally, those are some of the best games. When you have teams that are really battling, but also give the high five, like honestly, right after the game, those are the ones where you're like, man, I got this completely right, because no one's mad, but they also like played physically and hard.
Yeah, they both want to.
Yeah, so it's a hard line, and not everyone's going to get it right, and they're not going to get it right all the time, right? So I definitely understand. I've been in that position where I've had a team that like didn't really play physically, and you play a team that is physical and they're just like shocked, and it felt very bad, which that's not what we want as a ref or a coach or as a board member. But there is a line that every ref is trying to walk, and it's going to be inconsistent.
Absolutely. And I mean, it will always be inconsistent. And as a segue, Helen, you had a good question. I want to just read it. How can we provide feedback on a referee? We've had all positive experience. And I just want to say, get ready. But there are some senior referees who take the time to explain calls to our U10 players. I really appreciate it. So I would just say, I'm kind of a nerd about referees. I love watching referees that will explain their calls. Bjorn is really good at this, especially the younger teams. If it's a handball, or if you think it's a handball, he's play on, not natural. I mean, he's really good at instructing. The better referees can explain a call in about 4 words. A lot of it's play on, but a lot of it's very simple. But at a younger age, it is very instructional. Yeah. So in rec, if it's a 7v7 or 5v5 or something, and the throw-ins are just hilariously bad, a lot of times I'll just stop and I'll give a quick clinic on what a throw-in is. I'm not going to give it to the other team. I'll just say, hey, here's how you do it. Go for it. It's instructional. And calling fouls is also instructional.
There is like it really does depend on the age and like what the game is like, right? Like there was a game a couple weekends ago that I did where obviously it was 7v7 and the kids the goalkeepers didn't understand when a ball was live and when it wasn't. And it was very clear that they didn't understand that. And so in the second half, I stopped the game. I called everyone. I called all the players over, and I explained when the ball's live and when it wasn't. And then we went on and played. And not everyone's going to do that. Is a 14-year-old going to do that? Almost certainly not. Yeah. But I'm 51, and it also gave me a chance to get a breather because I'm slow. Like I love doing that, right? I love taking the time. Not everyone's going to do that. Yeah. And so it's, but that game was like, man, I knew that wasn't going to impact the flow of the game, and it was going to be helpful. And it's like they're obviously like very new, and these are things they don't know. I love taking that time. Not everyone's going to do that, and especially the young kids will have a really, really hard time. I mean, like the whistle blow from a 14-year-old is often pretty light.
Yeah.
Whereas like, man, you're going to hear my whistle.
Yep.
Everyone's going to hear my whistle. Everyone's going to know I mean stop. So there are levels to this. And, the thing with those young referees, again, is like they're learning to ref just like your players are learning to play. And so we have to give them like the space to grow to do it.
I have to leave. I have to pick. I have many children. We had 4 and 5 years, so I have to pick one of them up from somewhere.
Yeah.
But I did put my email. It's alamedaassigner@gmail, and my cell number. Email me first, because I created the email just for being the director of referees. If you have questions or comments, or if a referee was late or unprofessional, I want to know about that. I don't want to hear about a missed call. I do want to hear about things that we could change immediately, like wasn't there on time, that kind of thing. I actually do want to know about, and I will talk to the referee about. I mean, they're not going to get punished so much, but it's our reputation too.
I've seen a referee like have earbuds in listening to music during a game. And like,
no.
let's have a conversation about that.
Jordan, thank you so much. I don't want to end this, but I have to run. So
yeah. All right. Yeah, sounds good. I think we're there. Anyway, so thank you all for taking the time to be curious about this and to educate yourself on this. I hope this was helpful. And thank you for being part of the club. Appreciate all of you.
Thank you.
All right. Night all.
Good night.